is money.
It's nothing.
Ballin', ballin'.
Alakwa.
Premium or nothing.
When them or nothing.
Now you know.
Now you know.
Now you know.
Now you know.
Hey. Forget what they're on them. Yeah. Ayagaya.
Iba. Apa.
Ayagaya.
Come on. Iba.
Ayagaya.
Iba. Apa.
Ayagaya.
Iba.
Ayagaya.
Iba.
Ayagaya.
Apa.
Ayagaya.
Iba.
Ayagaya.
Come on.
Hi, welcome back to Couch Chronicles.
Welcome.
Tyler and Jay, you ready to start mindfulness?
Yes. Are we sure? Let's get it. Put my
Alrighty. So everyone get themselves into their mindfulness position, which looks like back is straight but not rigid. Your feet are planted on the ground. Go ahead and get rid of some of those zoomies that like to show up whenever it's time for stillness. And we're gonna start off with a cleansing breath in through your nose and out of your mouth. So let's do that together now. And release. For our mindfulness today, we're actually going to be practicing a different form of breathing. So most of us are used to the type of breathing that is de-escalating or that is down-regulating. Sometimes though, we are in need of, I would say, an experience that's a bit more invigorating or activating. So we're gonna practice lion's breath, which looks like when you take an inhale, you're gonna be very deep and intentional with inhaling your breath. And then on the exhale, you are going to roar with your breath, which looks like a very forceful exhale where your tongue is stuck out, which looks like this. So let's inhale. And exhale. That's what that feels like. So tongue was out, you're very forceful in your breath, you were pushing it out like a lion would roar. Let's do that together now. Let's inhale. And exhale. Let's sit for a few moments and just notice how your body is responding to that type of breath. Notice your rise and fall of your chest, your stomach. Notice how your shoulders are feeling in this moment. We're gonna do another rep of the lion's breath. So let's inhale. Exhale. Say a few affirmations that I want you to track in your body where they land. That is, just gently observe and notice what parts of your body respond or come alive after I've said a few affirmations. I love and accept myself just as I am. I am strong and resilient. I forgive myself for my past mistakes. Let's do another lion's breath here. Let's inhale and exhale. Now for the last round of lion's breath, on the inhale, to yourself, you're going to say, I am, quietly in your mind. And then on the exhale, you're going to fill the blank with a word that calls to you. That could be bold, loved, unique, strong, beautiful. Whatever feels right in the moment, feel free to say that in your mind on that exhale. All right? Let's go ahead and do that inhale. And exhale. Slowly bring yourself back into the space, noticing the sounds around you, noticing your body in the chair. Blink your eyes open. Okay.
All right, friend.
Right.
So, what was that like?
Let me gather myself.
Right. It's the raw me, okay?
Yes.
Because I don't think I was ready for that, though I know what type of that breathing
breath is,
exercise.
yeah.
I know that breath. And I don't think I was ready, or there was a judgment around, do I feel like warring like a lion right now? Do I feel like, so I was like, you know what, just go with it.
Yeah.
So I did, and I noticed that I was tense in my shoulder, and I don't know if it's because I was also like thinking like, this is forceful. This is like really taking energy from me. So I was like, you know, I noticed that I just noted when I noticed my shoulder was tense, I relaxed it. Towards the end, I think with the mantras of the first mantra resonated around being enough and like feeling secure in myself and in my body. The I am mantra, I went to the spiritual part of I am who God says I am. And there was a sense, like a physical smile that came around and a presence. And, you know, just warring away and kind of like, okay, this is like empowering. This is like, okay, let's war.
Yeah. Okay. So from the beginning, you noticed a little bit of like resistance, a little bit of questioning if you were up for what I guess your mind was predicting was going to show up.
Yeah, it was around, not even was going to show up, like, do I physically am I in the mood to
do that? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. It wasn't more like what to expect. Like, okay, gather yourself together, get your voice together to like, just like get it. I'm like, so that was like, and minor judgments around, how I sound.
Yeah. Sure. I had a similar experience to that, right? Like the initial vulnerability of like being filmed doing a lion's breath. Because this is also a practice that I'm familiar with and like had the thought of, okay, how much am I about to give this? Is that going to be different from my private practice?
Exactly.
And I noticed that I felt like I gave it just enough for what I needed today. Definitely noticed the feeling of like energy being released, but a necessary release of energy because I think I was having a little bit of a stiff or like stale energy. It's been a little while since we recorded, so I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm like dusting the cold off really. That was a helpful start to kind of wake me up and like a more, like you said at the beginning, a more like regulating practice.
Definitely more invigorating, right? Versus maybe what we've done before where you're a bit more relaxed, a little bit. Also, it's familiar, the ways that we have practiced mindfulness before where there isn't a lot of engagement in our face. There isn't a lot of maybe sound that we are kind of like creating.
Right.
And both of you guys noticing how easy it is for us to like step out of participating to observe ourselves, right? It's a question of what do I look like? What do I sound like? How do other people view me doing this thing at that moment? Right. For you, it showed up with maybe a bit of like a bracing and a bit of questioning. Am I in the mood? Right. But if we even like explore that further, what the mood means looks like more like, am I ready to fully embrace what I am in this moment through the practice, it seems like.
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly what it was.
Right? And then for you, Tyler, right, there was familiarity in terms of I've done this before, I've practiced before. I also am aware of, I guess, what I look like when I fully
or
what it, I guess,
what it's like. It can be more intense.
Yes. And so it's like kind of a little bit of trying to curate how much we sometimes like give in the moment. I think a lot of our viewers and listeners would probably resonate with that, right? That sometimes practicing mindfulness or even practicing certain behaviors, right? Like, you know, it's going to elicit certain thing inside you, and you're not always willing to maybe like embrace how other people will see that vulnerable part of you. So we try to edit, we try to present our best selves, even with us here that we've known each other for so long.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's the added reality of other people are also seeing us.
In that space.
This is for the show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But thank you guys for practicing. I have been doing lion's breath all week with my clients, so I have had a little bit more experience with that, right?
He was Warrington.
I was. But one thing I noticed was that my throat is always activated. Like, I can feel the vibrations, or even a little bit of like, it's a little like rusty at the end. Like when I experience that, just showing how much I'm really activating those vocal cords that I don't usually do in that way. And what I also liked about the roar, it is very freeing. Like, I feel a lot looser now, and I also feel energized. Like, my hands are tingling in a nice way. Maybe it's the coffee, but but there are things that are happening now that I feel more open and ready to embrace than when I started.
Good deal.
Thank you guys for being here with me.
So good.
Necessary.
Thank you. Yes. So, what are we talking about today, guys?
Well, in light of, maternal mental health and whatnot, we are going to be talking a bit about postpartum depression, and just the impact that parenting can have on the mental health.
Okay, cool. Do we have a confessional?
We do.
Nice. Let's jump right into that.
Since having my son, now 2.5, I've been struggling with an undercurrent of depression. I'm the breadwinner while my husband is a stay-at-home dad, and I work from home most days. While that sounds ideal, it means I'm confined to my office from 8 to 5, and when I step out, my son gets upset if I can't stay. He has high energy and low sleep needs, so when I'm not working, I'm constantly on. We don't have family nearby, and our home isn't the most kid-friendly. Now we're pursuing IVF for a second child. My husband really wants one, but I'm torn. Would it make things harder or easier because my son would have a sibling? I love my son deeply, but I miss the control that I had over my time, body, and money in my 20s. I feel like I work harder than ever now, yet none of it's for me. Is this just normal parenting? Or is there something wrong with me? Am I even cut out to be a parent?
Honestly, I think that our confessional, a lot of moms, young, old, removed from the game, if you will, they can resonate with this experience of feeling like questioning if they were ready for another child after feeling so depleted and burnt out, and maybe like incapable of taking on an additional challenge. What do you guys think?
I think women just have it difficult, right? And not even women, just family. When you think, let me take that back. When you think about building a family and like having a partner and wanting children, and I think the struggle becomes like, it's like that social norm, that's the order of things and how it should happen. And I think after having experienced motherhood for the first time and the challenge that comes with it, and also acknowledging like, questioning whether or not do I want more or do I want to add on to that, but not, there's something about the minute you get pregnant or experiencing pregnancy that I feel like a woman tends to detach from themselves and their identity.
Yeah, sure. Like,
and
that.
I think it's like I got married, or I'm in a relationship, or I'm with a partner, and now this happened. Because some pregnancies happen unplanned and some are planned.
And some people don't necessarily have children with partners.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Because it could be like you're in a relationship, you just happen to get pregnant and you didn't plan on it. Yeah. But I think the minute that pregnancy happened, I think sometimes we tend to tap out of ourselves and just focused on the pregnancy.
Yeah.
And you question whether is this, especially for women who never saw themselves having children, end up getting pregnant. So
before we just go in, because I think you're making a good point about chosen pregnancy, planned pregnancy, having a partner versus unplanned, not having a partner. But our confessional, she does have a husband.
Right.
It was, what's it called? It seems like it was planned for her to have the child. She is the breadwinner while the husband is the stay-at-home parent.
Right.
So like that dynamic also has some challenges in the fact that like with motherhood, it's normalized that sacrifice is part of part of what is supposed to happen.
Yeah.
At the same time, back, I think when those things were established, those expectations were established, the men also had a role in kind of like upholding the finances, upholding, like giving the mom the resources in terms of like the finances needed to take care of the child. In this though, it's different. She is the one that is both the provider and the caregiver and also the person that is keeping the house running.
Which is the part of the sense of self. It's like, I wonder if she wanted this for herself, or it was like a checklist that she was doing, but also maybe check out of who she is.
Yeah, maybe
as
there
a
was
person, because that's what it sounds like to me. It's like, my husband, we're doing IVF. My husband want this. Everything is my child, my this. Like, where she fit in this?
Yeah,
in the identity part, and that's like, you know,
I'm definitely hearing what you're talking about, right? That disconnection from self. And it does seem like she kind of went into prioritizing the needs of others.
Yeah.
I imagine that was likely a belief that was with her long before becoming a parent.
Yeah, that's the point that I'm making.
Oftentimes, like, people don't necessarily check into those aspects even when planning for kids. It's not always like, what is the mental toll that will be like? I think I also heard our confessional person talking about not having family close by. That really changes the dynamics of things as well, because community is so important. And I think that, unfortunately, in today's society, we've really gotten away from that for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And she also talks about the fact that her son requires a lot of things from her that she neither has the time, the energy, or the resources to accommodate.
Right. So then where mom guilt come into play.
Yes, because she says that he's high energy and has low sleep needs, right? Which is a combination for disaster when you're a mom who has high demands at work, has low amount of sleep, and so the recovery time is less, right? But your child is still expecting the nurturing, the bonding, the being there aspect, and a lot of moms are unable to juggle them, not because they're not good moms, not because they're not good workers, because the tasks that are being asked of them is way above the means of a singular person being able to hold.
So let me ask a question real quick, and please clarify for me. Maybe I missed it while we were reading it. Did she make any statement or informed us of whether like she talked to her husband about this, carrying some of the load, or how is he able to assist?
It seems like the husband kind of has the kid while she is working, but it didn't really talk about how she communicates what those needs are. It does talk about like just an undercurrent of depression, and I'm curious about. I want some more information, right? I'm curious about what that has looked like.
Yeah, because I also want to be mindful that I know from clients and also from, I have sisters, who have children, or sister-in-laws, is that majority of the time, and not a majority, sometimes is that we as women were, not taught to communicate our needs, automatically assume this is my job as a mother, as a wife, and also struggle with not being able to say, or maybe a guilt of saying like, this is too much, I can't handle, I shouldn't handle it, I should be able to handle it, or why don't you see that I'm struggling? Why don't you see that I need help? Like this unknown thing, because you know, you and I were talking, like,
Right.
I have a client who feels like her husband should know, like, can't you see I haven't slept, I've been with the baby. Yeah. Can't you see I'm done, da, da, da. For him, he's doing the other stuff at the house because they have 2 children. And he's like, well, I'm making sure this is done. And there's a missing
There's
link.
a disconnect around like what the actual need is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of married couples, when they start having children, which is the part I was talking in the beginning about the identity piece around, you both have, the man as well as the woman, have to check in with yourself and who you are, how you're able to contribute, and just really have honest and open conversations.
Yeah.
And I don't think, it seems like, and this is my assumption around this confession around, I wonder either maybe she doesn't have the language or have not communicated that this is too much for me. I can't handle it. And then therefore, like, or maybe this is something that I've seen my mom or the women in my family deal with, so I should be able to deal with it.
Yeah. I think that piece right there can also get in the way of your partner being able to pick up on what your needs are. Like, how was motherhood modeled for them?
Exact conversations
if you have
like that.
a partner whose mother did everything and hid the fact that she was genuinely struggling and like on her last leg, then the partner will view other women in that way. Will view like other motherhood experiences in that way. Like, my mom was able to do it, why can't you?
I think that comes up a lot now, because if you scroll through social media, TikTok, Instagram, and you see like mom content, it is very like curated to look perfect, easy, joyful. You know, it looks like,
I make my kids cereal from scratch.
Right, like cereal from scratch. I am like in all the activities. I do all the things.
Yeah.
I have the perfect routine. I'm able to get my kids down by 7 p.m. So there is this Patty homemaker trope that women feel shackled to. Like, and we also kind of are, I feel like we're missing the undercurrent of depression there.
Right.
Yes.
Is a huge piece that I think is both underreported. And once it is reported, it is met with shame. Both things that are like, I think you don't realize that it is shameful, but also the people around you don't realize that they're upholding the experience of shame.
Right.
Exactly.
Right? Because that, I've worked with a lot of women who both during pregnancy and after pregnancy had a really hard time dealing with emptiness, worthlessness, hopelessness, and fatigue. Like straight up being tired. Right? And that causes a significant impact in the quality of like your life, the quality of the child's life, and also the quality of your marriage. Because if mom is so low in energy, sleep, pride, confidence, like all of those things.
Talk about the point of sleep when you relate it to depression, though. I think that's something.
Yeah,
it's very big.
Like that. I was gonna say the fatigue being really one at the top of the list that can be both a cause and an outcome. And think about how like being sleep deprived can send you into psychosis.
Yes.
Like your brain not having the opportunity to recharge is a huge part of your ability to regulate yourself, to make functional and accurate decisions about what's going on. All those things are most certainly necessary for parenthood.
And pregnancy wrecks your body.
That too,
so
right?
If
like hormonal changes.
You're not your body is not repairing after it's dealt with a traumatic experience. They compare pregnancy to being in a car accident. Like your body is actually wrecked. Like so not sleeping will cause you to pump out cortisol levels at a high level and dopamine in order to perform.
Right.
But you're not rejuvenating any of those things.
Right. You're not recharging.
And then also something I think too, I'm gonna honor my mom friends and clients also too. We say all this and we acknowledge all this, but what I usually get back is like, how do I implement? Like, it's hard to do or even acknowledge like something is wrong with me. I don't have time to acknowledge, which is what I also hear from this confession. Like, I don't have time to acknowledge like I'm not okay.
Yeah.
Or it's okay for me not to be okay. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think not necessarily the disparity or the missing gap for them is like, I hear y'all and I understand. And at the same time, how do I tap into
How do I change
me?
that?
Right.
Yeah.
How do I tap into me? Where will I get the time? If I'm the breadwinner, so if I don't work, we don't eat. We don't have a house. We don't have this, right? I also don't want my child to also identify with the fact that, well, mommy always worked. Mommy wasn't here. Da-da-da-da-da. So I got to make sure I balance that part out. Now, we're talking about toll on our bodies, right? IVF, someone who's experienced it, it's not for the faint and the weak.
Right.
So mentally trying to get yourself back into getting injection, seeing if it takes.
Yeah, it's a process.
The emotional toll, because I'm already at emotional vulnerability and sensitivity here, but then there's going to be an added things in my body that will intensify that emotional vulnerability, right? So I think what women have to realize is that there comes a point, if I don't speak, everything that I'm working for, everything I want to aspire, or the legacy, like we always talk about, leaving for our children, I'm the top of the totem pole.
chain, yeah.
Everybody else just falls to the bottom.
Yeah.
And if there's nothing holding us at the top, everything else is going to fall. And that's what I tell women is that I hear you, but there comes a point where you have to make a drastic decision.
Yeah.
And you have to talk. That's why I'm saying it's important if you do have a partner, because women are actually doing this without a partner. And I don't want to also take away from the fact some men are also being parents without a partner, right? But even if you have a partner, there comes a point where you actually have to say, I don't have it. What can you do?
Yeah.
Or what is my option if I were to take a break?
Yeah. I think you made a key point around that drastic change. And that is the part that can be really difficult because many people don't really know like what that looks like. So that can almost sometimes feel scarier than just dealing with what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
But I try to frame it to my clients like your life depends on this.
Exactly.
Your life and the child that you care about, love, and want to be here to support and sustain. That you have to make that change. And it can be really difficult for people to get there, but you know, that's why you got to talk to that lady. You got to make that therapy appointment.
No, you definitely need to make the therapy appointment. But even before you speak, you kind of need to identify what the problem is. Because I think a lot of women don't even know that they are experiencing postpartum depression.
Let's talk about that.
Or even being depressed. So let's talk a little bit about what are some of the symptoms. So
well, could define it first. So what is postpartum?
So postpartum is a mood disorder that affects new parents during pregnancy, and not new parents specifically, mothers, people who are carrying the child. They will experience this during pregnancy, after they have given childbirth, and sometimes a couple years into their child being born. So post-pregnancy. And what is a mood disorder, right? It is something that affects your ability to experience emotions in a balanced way over time. So here are some symptoms. Persistent sadness, right? Even after you're successfully birthed the child doesn't have any challenges or birth defects. Mind you, birth defects would increase the kind of like overall quality of life because you have to put in more. So there's more energy being kind of put out there. Anxiety, irritability, fatigue, meaning like even after you sleep, if you do sleep, you still feel brain fog, you still feel slow, like you're moving through the day in molasses, right? Difficulty bonding with the baby. That is the number one difference between someone who's experiencing major depression and postpartum depression. Right? Is that you're so low on your energy levels, there's this hormone that is needed for a mother and a child to bond. I can't think of the name right now, but you are lower.
Does it start with a P?
Yes.
Progesterone.
Yes, something like that. It's what's it called? It's a lot lower when you are experiencing postpartum depression, which affects your ability to bond with your child. There is also, when it comes to like suicide ideation, that is a bit higher in folks that are, in women who are dealing with postpartum depression.
Yeah.
But not only do they want to harm themselves or end their like life, they sometimes want to harm the child. And this is not meaning that the mom doesn't have the mother gene or can't bond,
they don't care
or
about the baby.
doesn't care or
Yeah.
is evil. You literally like are just unable to connect with this person or with this child because there are deficiencies in your body. Your mind is not creating enough hormones, enough neurotransmitters are not connecting with each other in order to create the experience of bonding.
Right.
Like it's not
Exactly.
just a gene that you have. There's certain things that need to line up in a particular way.
Yeah. And I do think that, like, societally, I think that pregnancy and childbirth is, like, how do I say? It's almost like romanticized in a way that doesn't account for the actual experience, like how big of a deal it is.
Yeah, because remember,
to,
you
like,
have now they have
create
baby reveals and
but yeah,
I mean,
like those things are like the fun parts about it.
Right.
In reality,
but that's the
like,
romanticized part you're talking about.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's more so
gender
like
reveal parties, the baby showers, the picture, but they don't show the
right, like the more harsh or challenging parts of it, that how it greatly impacts your body, and the really serious consideration and planning that is necessary.
Yes.
Yeah, when you're thinking about looking at postpartum, there are certain factors that make you more susceptible to that. Being a person of color,
Yes.
being someone who maybe already has a history of some depression or anxiety, being someone who maybe socioeconomic status can also impact your likelihood to experience postpartum depression.
Can you talk a little bit more about
that
how
part.
socioeconomic status can increase the likelihood of you experiencing that?
Socioeconomic status, having a lower socioeconomic status will impact your ability to have access to prenatal care, access to information that could support you in preparation for becoming a parent, lack of resources. That could even be down to, like, we don't have a grocery store that's close by. Or,
That has like formula, that has the things
my
that I
needs.
need.
Right. And you also think about low socioeconomic status also impacts your physical health. Like, there's lots of research on how that also impacts your physical health. So you think about that part. That also increases the likelihood of your child being born with sensitivities or challenges. So now it's not only do I not have access to regular formula or the formula that my WIC might cover, I have a child who maybe has some allergies
digestive
digestive issues.
For sure.
And so now that creates a financial challenge. And so there's lots of things that can impact your susceptibility to postpartum. Another one is that lack of community, lack of support. That is a big one that can really kind of kick postpartum into high gear. If you've experienced this big thing like childbirth, however you've welcomed that life into the world, then you come home and there's no support
if you're a
being able
single
to
parent,
be flexible to navigate. It
It
increases your chances significantly.
or even if you don't have family who are in the States or who are close by, or even if your relationship with your family is not close. You know, I do have a client who all their siblings, they have their kids and they have their own lives. So they don't feel like with their newborn, like they can actually have help or access to help because grandmom is already helping with all the other ones. Then how can, I feel guilty asking for this. But the point that you make one time when we were talking recently is around the fact that sometimes people's grandparents now are not even able to help because, like, to your point, you said they're still working.
That to do also with a socioeconomic status, or even some things that we talked about in earlier episodes around, like, hustle culture. We are not in a society now where you can have a grandparent who is retired, who can support with you not having to pay $2,000 in daycare every 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Yes.
You also perhaps don't have that neighbor who can also support you long beyond the childbirth.
That you feel safe with, because there's a lot of things happening with safety concerns for children.
Yeah. I mean, even in like daycare.
Yes.
Right? So like there's this kind of constant battle between like, I need to keep my child safe, but I also have to get back to work. I have to make sure that we can eat. I have to make sure we have the things that we need. So
for sure.
I think a lot about like maternal leave.
Yes.
Like that is something that, like, if you guys know, over the years they were fighting over how long to give mothers. And I'm always just so like taken aback about how other countries deal with or even like handle maternity leave. I don't remember what country it is, but some people get up to 2 years.
Yeah.
What do we get? Like 90 days?
6 weeks, something
weeks.
like that.
Like,
6 to 8
oh wow,
weeks.
not
6
even
weeks, and then you can like apply for like FMLA.
Right,
But, like, usually it just depends on the kind of job.
When we talk about like community, like sometimes it's not like, oh, you don't have anyone, but there is a fundamental problem with your community meeting the needs that you need. Because when I talk to a lot of moms, all they need is time to sleep, time to do things that are still connected
Their self-care.
to their values outside of being a mother.
Yeah.
And
I have a mom was like, I realized I didn't shower for 4 days.
No, literally.
I was like,
Because mind you, the days and the hours start to literally
Mesh
become
together.
one. The baby starts crying, you have to change it. Then you're trying to make sure you pump in enough time. Oh, now the baby's up again, I need to change it. And then I need to do like all this, and that's just having one child. Let alone if you have several children and a newborn, it is exponentially more difficult. And that's why a lot of moms will kind of like turn to their children to then be their like support or their caretakers or help them with the children, because that's the only assistance that they can
that
get.
feels more like a controlled space too. So I am curious, right? Like, how do we usually see this in the media? How is postpartum generally displayed in our like cinema and stuff that we consume?
I'm gonna say not great, because I went through and I did my research and I was like, okay, let's look up some postpartum movies. And the first thing that I noticed, it's a very white space. Meaning that like, what's it called? That most of the movies that talk about postpartum depression are by white filmmakers, white actors. They represent the white story, which looks significantly different when it comes to community and access than it does for somebody who's Black and people who are people of color. Right?
It socially it looks different, but symptomatically
they're similar. They're very similar and definitely look can look very similar, and there's a lot of differences. I also noticed there are not a lot of Black film or other what's it called foreign films that talk about postpartum specifically. What they will have it'll be a psychological thriller. And it will look like the mom being this evil person, or diverging into psychosis, or which, mind you, psychosis is something that does happen in postpartum if it goes untreated for a long period of time. Tully is a great movie that talks about that.
I have not watched it, but
it's with Charlize Theron. It talks about a mother. She's of 3, and she just had a newborn baby, and the first scene talks about how she is overwhelmed. I mean, the sounds, you hear the baby's crying. You see her literally half dead from not sleeping, but still having to get up from that low space to care for other people. Like, talk about pouring into other people's cup when there's nothing but dust particles on the bottom of yours.
But I think that's interesting too, Jay, because you mentioned that like the symptoms can be the same, though it can be depicted differently.
Yes.
I think oftentimes in like, from like a person of Black motherhood, we often will see it like the aftermath, like somebody put their baby in the dumpster or like completely abandon their child. Abuse. Like there's some substance abuse involved, which
Like Antoine
oftentimes,
Fisher's
yeah, but it's
story, like all these
oftentimes
different
like
ones.
we're looking at the after behave, like the outcome, and not actually what's really happening.
What led to
Things that
that
led
point.
up.
The substance abuse is likely means to cope,
And numb.
to slow down,
To
to
function.
numb, to
Yeah.
function within like
Or
whatever
give you energy
other
for the folks
deeper-
that take some of the stimulating things to
Correct.
help
Yeah,
them get through the
but
day.
I think that we don't often look at that, and yeah, I think that that is also more like extreme cases as well. Like those are not necessarily things that don't happen, but it's more common for people to just experience like extreme depression and like some of the other things that you talked about earlier.
So I would say,
also-
go, you go.
I also think that as a people of color in Caribbean and even foreign women, because even talking to my sister-in-law, I also don't think we have language and or given permission
Yes.
to even know depression, let alone postpartum depression.
Yes, that's the part that I meant to say earlier, right? You mentioned that the symptoms can be the same, right? Based on like across demographics.
Yeah.
However, the way that people are able to identify with Black women's intense emotions is vastly different. A Black woman is not perhaps going to present to you in a way that is like, I am feeling this,
Tired.
I am
They're not
needing
gonna be
this,
crying. They're not gonna
until
be
we're
tired.
at our
Yeah.
right. So
they will be screaming, yelling, and anger, and tears will fall, and she will still be categorized as
You're
why are you so
tripping.
angry? What's wrong with you? Like some, and really be overlooked and that dismissive. And this is where slavery, generational trauma really plays a role, or even around cultural norm. Because I promise you, my Haitian aunties, tell them depression what?
what does that mean?
You know, what does that mean? Let alone postpartum. And I could see, because in my cousin's experience of them, and it's not that they weren't doing their best. They were doing their best. They did try to do everything. But their experience is that, your mom hug you, like they tell you to, you know, like, do you have that nurturing part, or you can come and I can't talk to her about that unless it's relating to work, unless because they don't see the other side. I think it's now my aunts are intentional in having honest conversation about with my cousins around like what was happening to me at that time. You know, like I didn't have support. Yeah, your dad was financially taking care of us, but then there was, for me, you know, he was doing other things, or I felt alone, or I wasn't asked, or I wasn't seen. So I think it's really understanding and not really saying like, do I have permission to say I'm depressed, and what is it going to do for me? How is me identifying as depressed or postpartum going to do anything? Or even looking at the fact that children are God's gift. So that means I shouldn't complain. Like I shouldn't bother.
Or I don't have
Especially
space
if I'm
to not
someone
feel
who
excited.
struggle. If I was someone that struggled to even have a child, or struggle with fertility. So now I'm feeling extra guilty or shame that I can't connect with my baby, or I'm really sad, or I'm not able, or I'm not even able to stay up at night with them, or I'm tired, or I'm this. So there's a lot of barriers. I think women, though we are of different culture, economic status, and everything, but we experience things differently. And I think as a society need to embrace and pay close attention to it. I recently sent you guys a video that I saw where Black women are always saying, why are Black women so angry? And then this lady was like, go ask your mama. Like, we don't give a fuck. Like, why are you always playing on us? Why are you always this? And I think we need to support our own people, whether you're men or women. Be mindful about the language and the words that you use to describe us. Because we ourselves already weaponize it against ourselves. We ourselves keep trying to change and be soft. This is the era of like, you know, Black women being in the soft era, being vulnerable, being this. We actually have always been that. Now we are exercising it. Then you're always going to find another layer or something wrong with it. So let alone for me to embrace motherhood and make motherhood me, then there's also facets of motherhood you got to be open to hearing with not just saying like,
it's awesome, and you should just be grateful. I'm not gonna lie. I think that has also been one of the things that has like made me hesitant about parenthood. I feel like I'm always on the fence. I don't even think that I really thought of myself as someone who could like be a mother until I took like a I took a class in grad school that was like counseling women and children of African descent.
Yeah.
And it just changed my mindset about motherhood.
For sure.
Yeah, sure. So,
And you're a bomb ass auntie.
But I am a bomb ass auntie, and I love that. I'm a part of so many people's villages.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing that has kept me from like pursuing that myself is just, what am I gonna be like as a parent? I've already got my own shit. I have my own history.
But that's
of feeling,
real though. That's that peri part. That's the part that Stephanie was talking about.
The peri postpartum that shows up during pregnancy.
Is that a lot of times some women stray away from pregnancy out of their own learning history and their own experience as a child, as an adult, and as
fear,
like
lack
how
of support.
mothering. Yeah, for sure.
Also, being a mother is hard.
Hell yeah.
Because like a lot of the times if we're talking about like maternal health, we also need to talk about how quickly society blames mothers for children's grievances, faux pas, and a lot of it is solely on the mother.
Yeah.
I know that's part of the reason why a lot of moms stare away, is that not only do I not have the support, I'm also not given the accolades for the effort that I put in, all the small things that I do that are not championed.
Right. Prime example, right?
Okay.
My dad is a girl dad, so it's just me and my sister. And people would be amazed that he could get us dressed, do our hair, and take us out.
Yeah.
Who doesn't expect that from a mom?
Everybody expects that.
Everyone expects a mom to already have those things. And my dad is being praised for it as if he's not also a parent, you know? So it's like this undercurrent of like women, or the mother is supposed to know all and be all.
Like it was downloaded to her.
Right. And the rest of us are just like,
But I also want to commend your dad in men. For some of the men who actually notice, like, no, you don't have to bear this cross alone.
Yeah.
Like, the men in my family, including my husband, like, they actually break some of those barriers.
Yeah.
Like, my brother, when it comes to parenting, both of my brothers, like, my older brother, James, he's the one who does the hair changing, who does, Daddy, this is her, this is that. My sister-in-law, she's the where she works. Like, she does, and they share of the load. And same thing with my brother. And then my husband, you know, it's like, we want to look at both sides of the refrigerator, and at the same time, they are not asking for accolade for it. Right. But know that that's something they should be doing. Right. And acknowledge that. So it's a both and factor, but I can get how they get praised when they actually do it, as if it's something they shouldn't be doing as part of their parenting. But that's that social norm and social expectation.
Exactly.
Right?
That's the way that our society can kind of put stuff onto us. Yeah. And that can be harmful, that like we don't even necessarily commit to ourselves, but like that just is the way it is.
Yeah. I wanted to say a little bit about what you had said about like how your experiences as a child will affect your openness to motherhood. I know for me, I've had an experience or felt like I was very responsible like growing up, and I had to take on, rearing, it felt like, my siblings, or checking for them, monitoring for them, at times, disciplining them. And I know the anxiety that I feel about like, are they okay? Is something bad going to happen to them? Like now is not, I can imagine it's a lot for me, and it feels like something that a mother would experience, that I'm feeling a fraction of what a mother of their mother does feel. Like I know my mom definitely feels are they okay? Are their dreams coming true? Right. Are their aspirations,
are they safe?
Being met? Are they safe? So like I know for me, a lot of that is that I experienced that at a younger age and at a intensity that then makes me question my ability to wear that.
Can I do that?
And so it's like, because I question that, and because I can notice that I'm short-tempered or I'm frustrated in certain areas, I tell myself that you'd be better if I didn't do that. Because I don't want to,
that's real,
quote unquote, mess my children up
that's
because
real.
of the scars that I carry from taking on a lot of stuff that I had to, and also I would say connected me to lessons that I wouldn't have learned otherwise.
Yeah.
Which what you don't see is also make you more equipped to actually be more of a mother because you've experienced
That's
it.
the part that I've realized with being an aunt. Like,
so
some of these things perhaps set me up for success.
Yeah. So that's that part.
So how, like, all of us being a part of support systems, how would you recommend to our supporters how they can, be there for the women in their lives who are maybe getting ready to experience parenthood, or how can they look out for signs of postpartum?
I also say, like, for me, I don't have any biological children.
Right.
But I am a mother of many. Mm-hmm. And I embrace motherhood in a lot of different ways that I didn't think that I would have.
Right.
So I would say, if you're planning on having children, go back to the beginning of what I said, like, really be settled in yourself and who you are to ensure that you're ready for this journey. Yeah. And even if this journey was put on you, meaning like, you get pregnant and you didn't. It wasn't a planned pregnancy,
or this happens
or whatever.
Before you know yourself.
Just make sure before you make any concrete decision about what you're gonna do with your body or your pregnancy, that you check in with you and not so much about the fact of being pregnant.
Right.
So that's my number one thing, is like really be settled in who you are as a person. Now, I want to say that the second thing that you can also do is around the fact that when you notice your feeling of anxiety shows up, or when you notice you have any discomfort around your pregnancy, it's just be honest with yourself about where you at. You're not feeling good. And it's more than okay to do that. And having a village in the support system.
Yeah, I would say even being a part of a village, just be prepared to already ask the questions. You know what I mean? I think that a lot of women really struggle with the idea of, like, me having to ask is additional thing that's already on top of a list that I know that I can't tackle.
Exactly.
So being in the position to just be there, just support. I'm just going to show up so you can wash your ass today.
Exactly.
Like, just simple things like designating that time, asking questions far beyond that first couple of weeks or even that first year, but like being willing to watch them kids, like being
also,
willing
like,
to stretch yourself.
If you have a partner, split the bonding time.
Yes.
The child needs bonding with both parent, not just you.
Yes.
Women, I'm sorry, I love you, but be able to say, like, pump the breast milk. Give the father can feed the child and nurture and sleep and play with the child.
Because that is part of the reason why the mom feels guilty. Because the child really will be like, no, I only want
need
mom
her.
only, because they don't know the
and it's
smell
okay
of
for
dad.
them. Exactly. So that's why it's important that you should have tummy time and time with the both parents.
Yeah.
So be okay to step away for 3 hours. Hey, you on shift. And you wash your ass if you need to. You watch TV. You be lazy. You sleep. You whatever.
You get out of the house. Like, because that's also one of the things that I want to add on is that a lot of women get like attention during the first 3 to like 4 weeks of post-pregnancy. And if even that, where they'll have the mom coming in, the dad coming in, the mother-in-law coming in, the sisters coming in. But slowly but surely, every day after that, there's less people. There's less attention. There's less support. So there's this thing called the 5-5-5 rule.
There you go.
So 5 days in the bed where you are going to pump, you're going to rest, you're going to rejuvenate yourself. People are going to bring food to you. People are going to bring drink to you. You get out of the bed to wash yourself. 5 days on the bed where you are not tucked in and not this, but you're a little bit freer, right?
Yeah.
But you're still prioritizing rest, relaxation, and bonding with your child. And then 5 days near the bed where you might maybe be in the rocking chair, you're a bit more lifted, you're taking on more responsibility, but it is in a very piecemeal type of way versus it goes from, oh, I had all this care to then now I have no care and I have to take everything on and start off running when my body has not recovered, is not healed, and a lot. Like a lot of women take a lot on before their body has even had the time to get back to a level of like starting point.
Exactly. All right. So we're going to get into the listener's letter.
Yes.
I'm a 27-year-old female Congolese and my boyfriend, 29 male Serbian, and I have been together for 3 years. I finally met his parents after they kept asking to meet me. But my boyfriend had been hesitant due to the past bad experience with an ex. At dinner, his father said he didn't like my personality but couldn't give a real reason. Later, I found out that he thinks our cultural differences make the relationship too hard. He was disgusted when I held my boyfriend's hand and made hurtful comments about my natural hair, calling it fake, and said I was too done up. He even questioned my ambition despite my master's in psychology and career in finance. Meanwhile, my parents have welcomed my boyfriend with love, but I feel isolated and like there's something wrong with me. I'm starting to resent his family. Would it make sense to walk away, or should I try to push through this?
You should not. Okay. I am gonna say that I am a firm believer in when you have a partner, I think that your partner should create some sort of shield between you and their family.
Yeah.
I do not think that it is really ever acceptable for you to be fighting a fight against somebody's family and your partner is sitting back or just kind of feeding into the customs. With that being said, when you are in a relationship with someone else, you also consider those different cultures. And perhaps those are some things that this person's partner maybe could have prepared them for in advance. However, there's not really a lot of options here as far as partner is either going to have to check said family or you are going to have to tolerate or choosing not to be in that relationship.
See, I'm not about you gonna have to do anything because there's no such thing.
It's a wrap.
I'm not going to have to do shit, okay? Because, sir, it's whatever it is. You knew that your family had a set of belief system of who they wanted you to be with, and all of that. It is your job, not my job.
Right.
It is your job to inform me and inform them of who you choose to be in a relationship and fall in love with.
Right.
Now, it is my job, of which it sounds like she does, of learning about your culture norms and to be respectful. And so that's your part to do that.
Right.
But I'm not going to sit here, and you shouldn't be okay with me sitting here while your father, mother, or whoever, or the dog or the cat disrespect me. Because that says
won't
a
go
lot.
Down like that.
Because that says a lot about how you
the partner
see and how you feel about me.
Yeah.
Because how about if I'm in the street and somebody's doing the same behavior? So now you're breaking trust with me. Because then how's that going to work?
That's all it takes.
So, and this is the thing that I say. Y'all know I'm with relationship. You know,
Once I don't feel safe,
I'm be
it's a
fucking
wrap.
real with you. Because here's the thing: if he's showing you how he's protecting you now, sis, go find somebody else. Okay, get a Bobby from South Africa or something. I don't know what to tell you.
So
let that go.
Let me go ahead and take it before things go left. So there's a very clear thing: is the dad is prejudiced, stereo is definitely a bigot.
All of that.
There's definitely, I would say, racial undertones there, obviously, but also the boyfriend was aware that there was going to be some kind of problem because he said that he was hesitant due to a previous bad experience with his ex.
Right, but we didn't get details on what that bad experience is.
So the question is he used to dating women of a particular race and that this is something that he's used to, knowing that his parents aren't going to change
what
from.
Woman you think is going to be okay with this?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that you definitely want to walk away after you have a very pointed conversation with your boyfriend about what is tolerable, what is not tolerable, and what you expect for him as a partner. Because obviously the 27-year-old woman, because they've been together for 3 years, values and loves this person in the way that he has shown up has not been disrespectful or off-putting, but then
this is
how important, right? This is a big test, but also how important
you have hidden me for 3 years.
Yes, but how important is your family's like opinions
That part.
to our future relationship. And I think that's a conversation that needs to be had, because if it is not important that what your family thinks, then you need to kind of like operate accordingly in how you continue to kind of like present me and show up with me. That's what I would
clean
say.
version.
Exactly. I think that also ties back to what we talked about earlier around having that village. If I'm thinking about a relationship long term, your family needs to fuck with me. I'm not sending my kids over there. You don't like me.
Because you got to think about that, because then we're going to have a biracial child.
We're going to have
so
something.
Is grandma going to call my child like any derogatory?
No, but these are things though.
But those are the things
you said
that are
grandpa, my
showing
bad.
up.
You're talking about the dad who
people don't
disrespectful.
Right. Like sometimes it feels like, oh yeah, we're in this together and like da da da. But like that. Depending on your culture, is family, is I don't want that on my.
But we're not telling you what to do.
We're
not telling you. We're just telling you be mindful, pay attention to what is being said and not said, and just jump into things thinking things are going to change itself. It's not going to change if what you see is what you see right now.
Action.
So just to Stephanie's point, really have a conversation. If your family's opinion don't matter to you, then how are we going to navigate as a unit for our future? If it does matter to you,
this ain't going to work.
Then this ain't going to work. I'm sorry. Like, we may need to reevaluate. Okay, y'all? Well, this has been good. It's been a really good conversation.
Yes, we want to hear more from you all, so you can reach us at Couch Chronicles TAD@gmail.com to send in your confessions and listener letters.
Then check us on YouTube.
Farewell.
Bye.